Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market.
Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are on episode number 62. And today we have a very special guest. We have Karen Yolevski from Royal LePage, corporate head office. She's the chief operating officer. And Karen, we're super excited to have you on our show today.
Thanks, David. Great to be here.
And I think the pronunciation is Yolevski. I think you may have mispronounced it a little bit, but
Yolevski, my apologies.
Yeah. No worries.
It's all that excitement. It's all that excitement of having you on the show.
Yeah, and I'm excited too. I think Karen, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I think we first met in when you were in a previous role at Stewart Title, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I've had lots of interesting exposure in the broader industry. So always great when you realize how small the Canadian real estate industry actually is, that you cross paths again in different formats.
Yeah. And you've got a really interesting background, and I think everybody that's going to watch this or listen to this is going to want to hear about it. So why don't we just get into that a little bit, because like currently maybe explain what your role is currently, and then but to take us back to Stewart Title, and even before that, you were, if I'm not mistaken, you're a lawyer. I don't remember.
That's right. I did practice it. I practiced for 7 years actually. So a bit of an interesting path, right? People always say, to let you know what they want to be when they grow up. Sometimes I still feel like I'm in that zone. But what I do
is trying to figure it out myself. I'll let everybody know once I figure it out when I grow up.
Exactly. But what I do for Royal LePage is I head up all of our corporately owned brokerages. So we have brokerages under the corporate umbrella in Ontario, as well as in British Columbia and Quebec. So we span our biggest provinces, our biggest markets, and it's very exciting, but it is different than what I did previously in my career. So I did start as a lawyer, and David, my practice was very similar to what you do at Kormans. I did a lot of real estate, estates and trusts, corporate work, and there were elements of it that I loved. Absolutely, the client interaction was my favorite part of it. But you hit a certain point and opportunities present themselves, and sometimes you change paths. So I ended up moving on to a fintech company that now is known as Flexity Financial. And it was a complete 180 for me, tech and consumer finance and startup life and all that good stuff. And I did love it. And I love the business side that I was exposed to there. So from there, I was this real estate tech background person, which is sometimes an odd combination to have, especially, a decade ago. And I've done some things in the broader industry, as you said. So I've been in appraisal management, closing services, title insurance, as you mentioned, and now brokerage.
Right. So you were there for a while, and then you went to Stewart Title, and your role there was on the tech side, or was marketing and tech, or is it all intertwined?
It was all on the business side. So at Stewart, I led the business development teams. So on both the residential and commercial side.
Right. And then from there, that's a pretty big jump back to Royal LePage corporate from there. So when did that happen?
So that happened spring of 2021. So coming up to a year and a half, not quite a year and a half here in my role with the Royal LePage. And it's been really very interesting and very different in many respects, but also you realize quickly how many similarities there are within the broader industry and the different companies and types of players in the industry overall. And there's also a lot of similarities to working with lawyers. And I don't know, David, if you've ever seen that or thought about that. I'd love to get into it a little bit, but there really are a lot of similarities between realtors and lawyers in this space.
Well, lawyers, when you're talking about lawyers, you're talking about lawyers that do like what our practice is, which is transaction type of lawyers, real estate lawyers. We're trying to get deals closed. So I think, and we've talked about that before our podcast. There's a certain personality type that does real estate transactions as opposed to litigation. Right. And I couldn't do litigation. I'm not an adversarial person by nature. And I think most real estate agents certainly aren't like that. You get into some heated battles sometimes on transactions, and you don't always like the agent on the other side of a file. But I think you're always hoping that you've got a good agent, a competent agent to work with on the other side, because you're both working to get the transaction closed. And I take that attitude all the time, and I think all the other lawyers in our office do as well.
Absolutely. I think there are two types of lawyers for sure. And real estate lawyers do want to get the deal done, which is what all of our clients in this industry and in this business, all of our realtors want to get their deals done. They want to serve their clientele, customer service, a helper attitude. That all is innate, I think, in our clientele here. And I think in the real estate lawyers that serve the community as well.
Yeah, we're on the same team, right? I think we're all working together for the benefit of the clients, and the closer that we work together and the more communication there is and the more seamless the interaction, the better the customer experience is. At the end of the day, we both have the same goals, right? Is to close the transaction and to make that customer experience the best that it can absolutely be, and to have fiduciary duties to our clients at every step of the game.
That's right.
So Karen, in your current role, like what type of support are you providing to the different offices?
So those offices are rolling up under this corporate umbrella. So it's everything from the 5-year plan for where the brokerages are going across our 3 provinces where we operate, to what services are we providing our realtors on a day-to-day to add value to them and to their practice, and to ensure that we're helping them serve their clientele. And there's some of the stuff that maybe isn't as exciting, a little bit behind the scenes, the budgeting, the general people management, ensuring that our operations are running smoothly across all of our branches in different time zones, et cetera. But that's sort of the less glamorous side of it, let's say.
But you have 111 people, part of that organization or part of that direct operation that report directly into you. I mean, that, that's not an easy number of people to manage on a day-to-day basis.
That's right. It's a big organization, and we feel very lucky to have a big organization that helps us do some pretty interesting things and work together in a way that potentially some smaller organizations couldn't. But with size comes its own set of unique issues. For our organization, the number one thing is communication. It's not always going to be perfect, but that is the real key to it. When you have a lot of people, you've got people that are not working in one work environment. They're working in branches in different cities, different provinces. It's about communicating, starting from the vision. Where are we going? People want to understand what the purpose is, and they want to understand what's in it for them. And I think when you're able to articulate that, then it's easier on the day-to-day, even if you're not there with them every day, they still know where they're going, and they understand why they're going, and they're motivated to go there.
100%. I completely agree. I think it all starts with a unified vision, and then everything kind of falls under that vision, and you can, make everyday decisions based on whether they align with your long-term vision, your 5-year plan, where you're going, and how you're impacting people on an everyday basis. So, I mean, it's, a lot more complicated than that, because, in the real estate industry, a lot of the management, a lot of the people that you're leading, and maybe not on the employee side, but definitely on the agent side, everybody's an independent contractor. Everybody kind of makes their own hours. Everybody's running their own business, right? So you're trying to kind of, lay out a foundation and groundwork to support those people that all have very chaotic hours, that work evenings and weekends. And it's definitely not easy to fit or layer over top of that a layer that can support those people on an everyday basis. So my hat off to you, Karen. 111 people. That's no easy feat for sure.
Thanks. Well, when it comes to our realtors, you're absolutely right. Independent contractors, they're not employees. And I think it's a fatal mistake to treat them like employees. We treat our realtors as clients. I call them clients. I remember when I first started, someone was like, well, what do you mean by client? Are you talking about the consumer? I said, no, in our world, the client is our realtor. Just the way, David, you would have been a client of Stewart Title. It's the exact same thing for us now. And I think that mindset, that mind shift really helps in terms of our service delivery. We think we want to provide our clients value. We want to surprise and delight. We want to ensure that they choose us. And that's really what it is when it comes to the brokerage space. The realtor is choosing that brokerage, not the other way around, and to some extent. That's what we're really focus on. And I think that helps, and that shift hopefully is felt in our brokerage, and helps us ensure that we are going to be that choice, and helps just also deliver our goods. The other thing is talking to our people. The best part of my job, the best experience, the thing that works the best, is just getting in front of our clients and talking. Tell me what's going on in your day. Tell me what you're struggling with. What can we help with? What could we do better? That is critical to our success. So I personally try to have as many of those conversations as I can, and all of our staff creating that service-minded mindset and encouraging them to do the same. Just talk to them, right? That's really what we want to understand. We want to understand you better.
But I assume you're also have to manage the 111 people side of it first in order to get to the client side of it, because I'm sure you got branch managers and assistant managers, and right, I'm guessing in each of these the offices, right, and you got to deal with their personalities and the way they want to do it, and you're trying to say, no, this is how we're going to do it corporately, as opposed to you being on an island. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you get some pushback from some of them, and some of them it's good ideas and good feedback, and there's a fine line sometimes between feedback and pushback, right? You have to navigate through that first and get everybody on the same page.
Absolutely. When you look at change management is hard. It's not an easy thing to tackle in any organization, any group of people. As humans, we are naturally going to be somewhat resistant to change. So you have to understand, how are you going to implement a change, and really think it through. There's some communication points that have to happen through the change management process, or you'll lose even your supporters. And gaining some early supporters, very, very key. If you talk about your champions and your challengers, if you can build up some champions around you that want what you want, they understand the what's in it for me, they believe it for the organization, they help fill those voids when you can't be there personally, when people are talking about things offline. Those champions really help you get it across the finish line. But it definitely is a mind shift, and you have to get people to really buy into the change before you're going to see it be successful. And it does take some time.
Right, because when you do go to sell something, so I'm using the word sell to your clients, the agents, you want them to be confident that there's a decision's been made, and that it's been well thought out, and there's a process that has been completed, and we're there to support you, and here's the plan, and here's what we think is good for you to follow, right? Because then they're going to go out and try and do that.
Exactly. And I think when, again, you're talking about independent contractors, as much choice as you can provide, the better, right? It's not an industry, it's not a type of company where you can force people to do even something is a great idea. There's not a lot of that in this industry. The better approach is to build buy-in, to build support, to build people that are excited about where you're going, and then they'll naturally follow. And that happens with I think a lot of brokerages and a lot of things you're rolling out. You need those early adopters. You need people that are buying into it, and they kind of help sell your vision as well, right? They're the ones that are maybe using your technology, they're using your marketing, and to see that real estate is so peer driven in so many good ways. That helps a lot too, because those are your best salespeople, the people that are believing in what you're doing, your brokerage, your vision, and they'll spread that word for you.
Yeah, the people in the trenches.
Yeah, it's sort of funny what you said, Karen. I'm now thinking in my mind as you're speaking, my whole relationship with title insurance. I was thinking of it wrong, because I should be thinking more that I'm just their client. I've been thinking I'm their sales agent all these years, because we're out there selling their policies. And I got to rethink how our relationship should be now, because we are the independent contractors acting for them.
That's why I told you there's similarities.
Guys, let's jump into the market conversation. Karen, one of the positives of leading such a big organization is to really see the numbers and how they kind of come in across the board and across the country and across different provinces. What are you seeing in terms of activity? What's in people's mindset?
So what we've seen since early 2022, when we were still in that exuberant period, really high sales prices, lots of competition, we have seen a quiet period that it seems like, at least in the short term, we've worked through the most quiet period we saw in that late spring, early summer of this year. Activity was really the story. People were talking a lot about prices, but in our mind, it was actually an activity story. We saw sales activity drop dramatically, right? 40%, it could be 50% in some areas. And that's unusual, even for summer, even for a normal summer, which it was the first normal summer for a couple of years because of COVID. We saw people sideline. And that happens often when you're at the beginning of a change in a market. People kind of go, okay, what's going to happen here? I'm not going to make a move if I don't have to, both sellers and buyers. Now, what we've seen in August, and then what we're seeing in these first few weeks of September, is that it's certainly not back to the market activity that we had seen, in previous years, but we are seeing an increase in market activity. People are sort of coming off those sidelines, maybe a little bit nervously perhaps, but they are coming off. And we're not seeing, most interestingly, we're not seeing the inventory overtake the number of sales. So people automatically assume, okay, people are stopped in the market. We're not seeing too much activity. We're going to see this sharp increase in inventory, and that's going to drop prices. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing the inventory remain low. Houses still getting snapped up. Less competition, which for buyers is somewhat of a welcome relief, right? Buyers are feeling a little more empowered these days, which is a good thing. But it's not this completely out of balance thing that people maybe anticipated would be coming. More interest rate potential increases coming still in this calendar year, and we'll see how those are absorbed and what that does. But I think what we're seeing right now for September, October, it's going to be a little bit more of the same. You're going to see activity, you're going to see people in the market, and you're not going to see inventory take over that sales activity.
So that was a great explanation, and I think it's spot on, and I think it speaks a lot to mindset, right? Because I think the lack of inventory can be explained by the fact that sellers still believe in the value of their home, and they still believe in our Canadian real estate mindset. They're not rushing to fire sell their property. Now, of course, there's going to be situations where people have bought in the high in March, April, and there's a little bit more motivation. They have to get their house sold, and we're certainly seeing that. So, I'm encouraging realtors to be aggressive when representing their buyers, right? But we're also seeing buyers sitting on the sidelines and taking a little bit more time making a decision, because they're seeing how the market's going to react, what's going to happen with prices, and are we at the bottom? Are prices going to drop a little bit lower? So they're certainly playing the waiting game and waiting to see what happens. So I think you've absolutely described it correctly, but it's that mindset that I think is the most important, because I think we're seeing both buyers and sellers still really believing Canadian real estate.
Absolutely, and as they should. If we look historically and we look to the future, there's sort of two sides to this coin. Historically, without a doubt, real estate has been an excellent investment for Canadians. Yes, there are always going to be market fluctuations in between, but if you look at a 10-year graph as an example, if you look at the GTA over the last 10 years as an example, house prices are about 130% higher than they were 10 years ago. It's a good return on top of a place to live and a place to raise your family and a sense of security and a financial vehicle to other investments. There's a lot of value packed into the purchase of a home. It's not just the home, and it's not just the dollars and cents on paper. Now, that said, people are talking a lot about the future, and this sort of, is this it? Are these good days over? And interestingly, if you look at the fundamentals of the Canadian economy, it's the exact opposite story. There are two things that are going to continue driving Canadian real estate for the foreseeable future. One is immigration, and the second is household formation. And those two things are putting the supply issues, which we've been talking about for a long time, continue to put those in overdrive. And we just can't seem to catch up from a governmental perspective, from a builder perspective. Builders are really going to struggle to keep up, given the cost of goods, the labor shortages, just the cycle we're in currently. It's not easy to build in the environments we're in, and it's not easy to build for profit currently. So this supply issue, this is not going anywhere. So if someone asked me, is real estate still a good investment? Emphatically, I would say yes.
Yeah, I've been noticing a trend. This is not a sophisticated poll. I'm talking about conversations I've had in the last 3 days with clients. And I've had quite a few, I don't know why, but all of a sudden the last few days, I've had a bunch of sales come in, people selling their condo, small homes, but not buying. And I asked them the question, like, are you going to buy? Because, there's a sale here. Is there going to be a purchase? And a lot of times it's, yeah, but we wanted to sell first, and then we're going to start looking. But I'm not getting that answer all of a sudden the last few days. I'm just no, we're just selling, and we're not sure what we're going to do, or we're going to rent, or we're just going to sit it out for a while. And I don't know if that's a trend, but I always get concerned for people when they answer that. I know some of it's driven by their employment status and some, things like that, or maybe their mortgage is coming up for renewal and they think they can't afford, the new mortgage, so they decide to sell. But, like David's always talking, like don't leave the market. Like, you're better off to always be an owner of something. Like, hang in there if you can, because when you leave, and then at some point you're going to rent for a while, and then you're going to try and come back in. I don't think you're ever ahead of the game. I don't know, Karen, what are your thoughts on that?
I think there's two streams of thought there, exactly, David. So I think there is always, regardless of market conditions, there's a camp of people that for whatever reason, employment status, or just things going on in their life, that unfortunately they have to sell for financial reasons. And it would be difficult for them at that point in time to continue being in the market. And I think where you're going to see that in this period, as we've seen in previous periods as well, it just does happen. Life happens. The other camp, that's where I would disagree with their strategy, right? People that are pulling out their money, we've seen this before. Oh, it's gonna crash, right? Everyone loves that word. It's gonna crash. I'm pulling out my money. I'm waiting. Well, there's two things going on right now. If you're pulling out your money and you're waiting, you're paying top dollar for a rental property, because we've seen rental rates skyrocket since January for a lot of factors, right? You've got people that sort of reunified during COVID, lived all in the same house, went back home to live with their parents, kids that didn't move out for the first time because of COVID. Those people are all now entering the market. School is back in person, universities, international students are back. All of this sort of pressure on the rental market coming back, plus people that are saying, I'm going to hold on real estate right now. I'm not sure. They're working to save that down payment. It's a bit of a perfect storm around rental. So I think if you're pulling out of owning and moving into renting right now, you're not going to get too far ahead with that strategy. And I also agree, once you're out, it's very hard. We know it's hard to buy a house, right? It's hard to buy a house in Canada. It's not a surprise. It's a challenge. It always has been. It's become more challenging in recent years. Getting back in would be very, very difficult. So it's hard, right? In your position, they ask for your advice. Of course, you're happy to give it, but people have their thoughts and they've got their strategies, and some people are going to do that. But would it be my personal recommendation? No.
I remember when I first got my license 16 years ago, very first transaction I did was a couple who bought a pre-construction townhouse in Toronto, and they paid, I think, $150,000 for it. And then 2 years later, they were selling it. And I think I got them, we broke every record in the complex. I think I got them like 192. And we were signing the paperwork. I asked them, so, why are you guys selling? A lot of rookie mistakes. Obviously, it was my first transactions, but they told me, they're like, oh, the market's going to crash tomorrow, like next year, where we're selling and we're going to be renting. And, I never connected with that seller after they made that decision. But I remember the next year, the market went up like 23% in one year. And then obviously that townhouse today is worth, north of $1 million. So, you hear stories like this all the time, and it's unfortunate, and you feel for the people. And the other group of people that you hear about is the ones that are moving away from the city to the suburbs, right? And that's also a very difficult decision that people make as well. And it's done for personal reasons, but appreciation rate in the core is always higher than it is outside of the city. Recently during COVID, we saw the suburbs really catch up and surpass the core in some instances, but historically speaking, the core has always risen higher than the suburbs. So when you do make the decision to move out of the core, if the market ever does cool down, it's so much harder to kind of come back into the city, because prices always maintain a little bit higher here than they do outside of the city as well, right? But I think owning real estate and staying in the market is absolutely the right thing to do. And I have a feeling that given the increased activity that we're seeing in the market right now, and given the fact that there probably will be some more interest rates, but I think, they're not going to last forever. In fact, when we take a look at inflation throughout history, it's always been, a short period of time or a defined period of time in the marketplace where inflation was higher than the rates that we wanted. And after some time, they did get it under control. I think we're going to see prices start going up again. And the people that are renting, not only are they fighting an uphill battle in the rental market, because the rental market is stronger now than ever has been probably in the history of our country. People are paying an astronomical amount for rental rates these days. But I think if the prices do move north, do move up, it's going to be really hard for those people to get back into home ownership.
Absolutely agree with you, David. It's very difficult, I think, you just said, to sort of stop that momentum that you have and come back in. And if you're not saving money because you're paying such high rent, it's going to be just twice as hard for you to do it strategically. I think if you're getting out of the GTA real estate game, I can see that. I could say sell your GTA house and perhaps wait it out because of what you said, right? We've seen some interesting patterns with COVID that may or may not continue on. I don't think you're going to see a collapse of a market that is in the people are moving to rural areas, or they did during COVID. But potentially, if people are starting to come back to the city with more and more frequency, you might see some more sensitivity there, as you said, than you will in the core that generally stays stable and continues to grow. And it has typically been seen as that most prized real estate simply because of the conveniences that surround it.
Yeah, how are realtors reacting to this ever-changing real estate market that we're currently in?
It's interesting, right? You hear a lot about realtors that maybe haven't seen it before, right? Oh, there's lots of realtors that have never seen this situation. And true, sure, we lots of realtors have joined the industry in the last few years, and that's great. But there's lots of realtors that have seen this situation. If you were a realtor at the beginning of COVID, you saw some really scary things too, right? Beginning of COVID, Absolutely. No one knew that the market was going to do this, what it did over the last couple of years. So it's not that delicate of a group. I think people overestimate, how are they going to handle it? Realtors are smart. They are creative. They are entrepreneurs, and they're going to pivot as they've pivoted in the past, and they're pivoting now. So I think that it can be hard, right? Real estate is a bit of an isolated industry. A lot of realtors say that, right? That they feel a little isolated, and we encourage them, like, come to meetings. Like, you've got colleagues, you've got friends here. We're all in the same boat. But you don't hear too much negativity. You hear people working on their business, right? Be really using this opportunity to build for where we're going. If activity is down, sales activity is down. Sales activity is down for everyone. But realtors can gain market share during this time. This is the time for building market share. They say that the rising tide, it lifts all ships. The lowering tide does not lower all of the ships, right? It may in an interim way because of sales activity, but if you're building your business during this time, you're actually gaining market share. So when the business picks back up, you're going to own more of it. And I'm seeing a lot of that. It makes me really proud, makes me really excited. You see people that are really digging in on social media, working more on their video content, things they didn't have time for as much, but working on like that leveling up mentality, a lot of coaching going on right now. Because people have a little more time to work on their business as opposed to the last 2 years, where lots of people really just being pulled along in a crazy ride, not only through a highly active, competitive market, but a really tough working environment. Like, we forget the realtors were out there, right? Day one, essential service with the public, trying to navigate through open houses, the masking rules, the vaccination rules, all of the things that they were doing, worried about getting sick, in an incredibly hot market. So people have been through a lot. It's almost nice to see people having a little bit of time, take a breath, work on their business, readjust, and plan for what the future holds for them.
Yeah, I think that's a great message to send to everybody, Karen. It's you should look at this as an opportunity, not a difficult period, not a down period, but this is an opportunity. You got to be positive. about what you're doing. We try and do that in our firm. That's exactly the way, my partner and I talk about what's going on with our firm. Well, things are down. Okay, this is an opportunity. Let's go through our systems. Let's improve our systems, improve our technology, review what we're doing, get out there and do podcasts and seminars and webinars. And it's an opportunity to try and grab more of a market share. And I think that's, a message that David gives out in his brokerage as well. Like, I think we have to give that message to people. This is an opportunity. It's different. And you never know, like, you're never going back to the old market. You're never going back, like, it's never the same. So if you're waiting for the market to improve, waiting for the tide to rise, like, you'll be waiting there for a long time and you'll miss the boat, so to speak. So because others are doing that. So I think that's really the right message, positive message. Look at this as an opportunity to be proactive and build your business.
There are always markets, right? There's always a market. It's just a different market. So
Right.
How are you going to operate in this market versus how are you operating in the other market? Right? It's the media that likes to tell us, oh, there's no market, it's crashed, there's no sales. It's not true. There are. People are transacting every single day. How are you getting your piece of it?
Yeah, and some people think, oh, the current market's going to end on September 20th, and we're going to a different market at that point. We're going back to the market that we had a year ago. It doesn't work like that. The world doesn't work like the next, we're in a current market right now, and this is going to evolve into the next market, and you don't even know when it happens. So you got to be looking day to day and thinking, what's the next thing that we can do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I met a really well-known broker owner a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the market, and he pulled me aside and he said to me, David, do you know what happened in '89? And I said to him, well, I'd love to hear from your perspective. You've been a broker back in those times, tons of experience, and a lot of realtors are comparing what's happening now to '89, which, they shouldn't, they can't. But it was a really interesting conversation from his point of view. And he said to me, he's like, do you know somebody called Sam Magdaddy and Loretta Finney? And I said, yeah, I think I heard of them. And he said to me, well, they completely and utterly built their whole entire business to the powerful brand that it is today when the market crashed in '89, because they dug in and they worked and they hustled and they put in the time and they put in the money when nobody else was willing to do it. And today they're completely untouchable. Right. And I think that's the message that everybody needs to celebrate today and really take a hold of that. If Sam and Loretta were able to do it in '89, like when we actually had a crash, when nobody was transacting, when there were crickets, when there was, 10 for sale signs when you were driving down each and every single street corner, right? And they took the risk and they invested in their business. And now look. Right.
Exactly. That is, to me, the most important message out of all of this, right? It's a mindset. What do you control? You don't control the market. None of us control the market, right? The economists can't predict the market, right? We see conflicting reports every day. But what can you control? Control your business, control your mindset, control your output, control what you're going to do this day, this week, this month, this year. And the business will come. I think that is a little bit of a leap of faith for people, right? People, oh, is this going to work? And we all are, right? We're impatient. We want to see immediate results from things. But we have leaders in this industry that we can look at and emulate. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to think, okay, what's true to myself? What do I know I can buy into that I can consistently execute on and go for it? And in this market, you will come out ahead. Give it a little time. You will come out ahead on it for sure. And I think it's a great message for realtors, especially if anyone is feeling a little bit beaten up by what they're, reading in the media or what they're feeling in their own life day to day.
So here's a question I've got for you then, Karen. It's been 33 years since 1989. So the methods that were used back then by them to pull out and to do their thing again are completely different than what you would tell someone to look at today. And I'm assuming in your role, you're doing, it's tech driven mostly, right? You mentioned before, like, get out there, do videos, do some other social media type things. So that seems, I guess I'm assuming that's the question for you. Is that the message that you're giving to everybody these days? Like, use tech to your advantage. There's opportunities out there.
absolutely, we want our realtors to leverage tech to the best that they can. It's available. It's like you said, it's something that wasn't available before. So take advantage of it. But the messaging can be a little bit different. So a couple things there. One, you don't want to discount some of the tried and true. I have many very successful realtors who to this day door knock. They door knock. They're good at it. You have to be willing to do it. You have to be consistent with what you do. And it has to be somewhat true to yourself. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone out there is going to say, oh yeah, I'm the best door knocker. I love it. It can be really hard. It's a hard activity, probably one of the hardest that there is, aside from cold calling. But if you do it, it does work. Farming, mailers, things that you've seen for years still work. So I don't think we should discount some of those tried and true things. I think what's really interesting with tech that's different than buses and mailers and the things that cost money. So there's two categories, right? The stuff that you have to literally financially invest in your business, and the stuff you can invest through time. And newer agents in particular, the best advice I think to give to them is what do you have in abundance that your peers, your colleagues that are selling more than you don't have? You have time. You have time because you're not in that race yet of trying to grow your business and scale your business, which is a difficult period in a realtor's life. You have time. So what can you do that's going to be cost effective for you, but help you build your business? And that's where things like video and social media, I think, are really interesting for realtors. Because what do you need to be successful, to earn the trust of clients? Right? You need them to trust you. You need them to know you, to feel comfortable with you, right? And how are you going to build that in this day and age? A lot of that is happening through social channels. It's happening through video. So you see this. You see a subset of realtors who've built businesses on the back of YouTube content, subject matter expertise content, short snippets, TikToks, things like that. That is a fascinating approach that's very cost effective, that gets you out there as a subject matter expert quickly and cheaply. And the only thing it takes is time. So if you're in that boat where you've got the time, but you don't have the resources, it is a great approach. And it does happen to be a tech strategy of sorts.
So smart, Karen. I completely agree. And it's something that, everybody needs to be doing a little bit more of, right? Because customers are thirsty for information and for interacting. And I think they want to know who you are, right? They want to know what you're all about. They want to know what you stand for. They want to know what sports you're into. They want to know who you are as a person a lot of times before they'll do business with you.
Absolutely. And consumers are different. They're more sophisticated than ever. And there's a lot of information that a consumer can find on their own very quickly. So realtors, we changed from this sort of gatekeeper of information rule that existed for a long time. That would have been just, absolutely happening in the 80s. But now it's more of a trusted advisor role. So you're really looking at who are you and what value are you providing to me as a person? It's not just about providing, listings and sales data. Like, oh, that's really easy to find. So building your brand and building your reputation and who you are and why you have value to share with them, and sharing that value for free, right? Giving them that sort of taste of it so they understand who they're getting before. That seems to be a big differentiator. We're seeing a lot of people grow very big businesses relatively quickly with that approach.
David, that's kind of what we're doing on the Dave and David on Real Estate podcast.
It's part of the process. It's absolutely part of the process. It's just getting out there. It's when we started this, Karen, just so you know, it wasn't like, let's do podcasts so we can promote Kormans LLP and Sutton Summit. Like, that was never the concept. It was, let's get people on that are interested. Let's have interesting discussions about the industry. Let's try and raise the bar in the industry. Like David has no hesitation getting, you on today from a competing brokerage. Like, that's the whole idea. We want everybody to be involved and share ideas and raise the bar in the industry. And in the process of that, we're getting exposure too for Sutton Summit and Kormans LLP, because we're out there and we have a YouTube channel and we have podcasts everywhere. So we get the content as well. So, it's partly by design, partly by accident, a little of both, but I think it's better than sitting at home saying, oh, where's the next file coming from? Where's our next transaction coming from? Like, when's the tide going to come in to lift us up? You can't wait for that.
Exactly. And people sense whether or not you're authentic. So when you're out there, when you're talking about what you do and what you love, and you see passion for it, that resonates with people. They get it. They get value out of it. They believe in it, and it works. So that's another piece of really great advice. Find something you're passionate about, and sort of dig into that a little bit. If you love talking about the market and you want to share, and you like the idea of working with guests and things, podcasts are great. If you've got that creative element and you love creative videos, channel that creativity. People want to see that. It's just about finding something. Not to say you can't or you shouldn't still step out of your comfort zone. There's that leap that is really important and good for all of us, regardless of what industry we're in. But finding something that's sort of true to yourself, that reflects back and people feel it and people buy into it more, and it does result in a bigger business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Karen, I completely agree with you. Just going back to the fact that, don't discount the good old fashioned ways to, do business. They work, and they work really well, and they have worked really well for generations, right? So any new realtor, I agree that time is a big leveling factor, right? But never discount the old methods of sales, right? And Sabia Ali is our broker of record. And she always uses the term, and she calls it a belly to belly business, right? And it really is, like, technology is a great way to kind of, get in touch with somebody, but ultimately you do that transaction by being belly to belly. It's a people to people, it's a contact business, right?
Absolutely. Getting out, meeting people, having connections, the best thing you could possibly do. I'm currently in Winnipeg at our national sales conference for Royal LePage, and that's all I'm seeing for this week is people belly to belly making connections. And it's genuine. They're not just going up to each other and saying, hey, would you like to give me a referral? I'm from here, you're from there. You build a relationship, you build trust, you have similarities, and the business grows. So never discount being out there, right? Join as many things as you can, be community minded. One of the things that struck me most when I joined the brokerage, and I loved about the brokerage, I work with people that as a collective are more community minded than I ever have in my career. No offense, lawyers are also very community minded, David, but there's a level in real estate. It's a service industry. And I think the vast majority of realtors in this industry, they really live to serve. And you see it in everything they do, but that helps create business as well. Connectivity, trust in the community leaders, all of that good stuff. So all of that works as well. Just be as present as possible. Tech is great, and it makes things faster and it makes it efficient. And our clients do want to be served that way. Consumers want to be served quickly, efficiently, but it doesn't replace the human connectivity, and that will still get you ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you would agree with this, but in my experience, I'm finding the younger generation, the youngest generation that are coming into the business, the ones that are in their 20s and 30s, that have grown up in a tech world and a social media world, struggle with that concept a little more than somebody that maybe had a previous career and then in more midlife, and then they got into real estate, because they've grown up in a world where they're not used to picking up the phone and just talking to somebody. They're not used to having meetings face to face and that belly contact all the time. They're not used to the rejection that you would have to go through if you're knocking on doors and farming an area, and doing cold calls. They don't experience that. They send something out on social media and they get a like, or they don't get a like. That's a different level of rejection than when you knock on someone's door and they slam it in your face, right? Or you have a difficult conversation on a phone. And I think that generation struggles with that. And I see that from an agent's point of view when I'm talking to some agents, and I see that from a lawyer's point of view too. We're always encouraging the lawyers in our office, the younger ones, that no, you can't just keep emailing back and forth or texting back on this. You got to pick up the phone and talk to the client, or you got to talk to the other lawyer and have a conversation. And it's really difficult for that generation to do that. And I know we're trying to encourage it because it's a technique that they got to learn. It's not that something they grew up with.
Absolutely. So again, a couple of things there for sure. So I agree with you. We do see let's talk about the employees that work for the brokerage now. Absolutely, there is a tendency for some, and it does tend to skew a bit younger, more on the email or the text message, and a little less likely to pick up the phone. And we say that too, 2 email rule. If it goes back and forth twice, pick up the phone for the third time, because something's not clicking there if it keeps going. When it comes to the agents, there's sort of two sides to it. Yes, absolutely a different generation, and that's not changing. I look at my daughter; she's 10, and it's a lot of this, right? They're all like this. There's not a lot of phone calls. People don't like voicemail, right? It's changing, and we're changing as people, I think, as technology changes. I think there's a place for it, and then there's a place where it's supposed to convert, and maybe that's where the focus has to go. So I think we'll hit a point where people would actually just prefer, can you just text me? Like, do you have to call me? So that will work, but it's knowing where that has to turn. There's almost like the 2 email rule. There's a certain point where if you don't take that text message and you turn it into something that's a bit more personal, it's likely to go cold on you. So I think in terms of our training, and how do we collectively ensure that people that are coming into this industry, where their entire world is operating like this, and it wouldn't just apply to real estate, it applies to every industry, it's going to apply to any sales job, that's for sure. When do you take that communication and when do you elevate it, and how do you elevate it, and what does that look like? I don't think that the belly to belly, the lunches and the meetings and the conferences and the quick coffee, I don't think it should die. Number one, I hope it doesn't die. I do think it's really, really important. I don't think it will, because I think by human nature that people do crave that in-person connectivity to a certain extent. And I think that people in sales functions, if you look at a DISC profile, typically they are people that are a little bit more sort of lifted and fed by human activity and interaction. So I think that you will keep that element, but I think a lot of it's about training people to be able to say, okay, where does that fit in nowadays? Because it's probably not here anymore at the beginning, but it can't be nowhere. It has to be somewhere in the path, the cycle of sales.
Yeah, I completely agree, Karen. And I completely agree that at some point you got to turn that conversation and meet them and work on that relationship, build the trust, and work towards, a successful interaction with that client, right? Because all too often, I mean, there's a lot of realtors out there, right? And if you don't turn that text message, that initial conversation into something a little bit more and elevate that experience, then you're probably going to lose the client, and that you don't want that. You want to build trust, and the best way to do that is, like 99% of communication is nonverbal, right? So you need to be in the same room. You need to have eye contact. You need to see the person's expression. You need to shake hands, right? You need to maybe bow down, but there has to be that connection, right? Because if we're talking about the 1% of communication, email, text, right? It's hard to build a connection using that.
That's right. And I think that the realtors do this and do recognize it. If you think of the client appreciation events and, like I said, the coffee meetings, and I don't think there's a lot of realtors that are going to say, I don't meet my clients. I think they may not meet them to sign the agreement anymore, but they're meeting them in the process. They know them. They know them somewhat personally on some level. So I agree with you completely. I don't think that it's going to not be a part of it. I don't think that people will be buying homes from start to finish online. I think that actually takes a bit of the joy of the process away. And as humans, we're conditioned to seek gratifying experiences. So seeing that house and visualizing your family in it and all of that good stuff, it's a really gratifying process. So I don't think that that's going to disappear, but I think tech just complements it, makes it more efficient. You go online, you see the virtual tour, you see the dollhouse, you see all the pictures, you can already start visualizing, right? You're already kind of starting that gratification process. You're getting excited about it. Now you're going to go see it, and your realtor is there to provide you that guidance. All of that works together really nicely. Then if you've made that decision, you're going to buy. That's where I think the tech really has that impact. It starts to really create a better consumer experience, because that's the stuff that is administrative in nature, a lot of paperwork, time consuming. No one wants to have to drive around for that stuff. So there's that time and place for the tech that really helps the industry. And then there's that time and place for the human element that really, I think, we're not seeing going anywhere.
Yeah. I witnessed a really interesting interaction between two of my realtors. Yesterday we had an in-person event, and these two realtors shook hands, and they're like, "Oh, have I met you before? Well, I have you on social media. I had like we've interacted before, but was it online?" Like it was just a really interesting conversation to see, because they had no idea whether they actually ever met in person or whether they just followed each other on social media and kind of knew each other. But there was a sense that, there was a relationship there, right? So it was really interesting to see that. And I feel that that's how our clients feel about us, right? If we do a good job on social media, if we do a good job with video, if we do a good job of putting ourselves out there, a lot of the times before we even walk through the door, the clients know us. They know what our kids are doing for sports. They know what hobbies you're into. They know your dressing style. They know your passions. They know your hobbies, right? And there's a connection and a bond. And a lot of the times, it's hard for you to catch up because you don't know them, but they already know you.
Absolutely. It's so funny you raised. What a great example. I have the exact same example from the elevator here just yesterday of, I think we're Facebook friends. And you start chatting and you have that instant familiarity. Yeah. It's so interesting because all forms of advertising, if you consider social media like a form of advertising, all advertising has sort of it's used in two ways. It's either going to be introductory, like you're meeting the person through this channel, or it's going to be confirmatory. You've heard about them, you've met them. Oh, I got my business card. Oh, let me go look them up. So it's working on both sides, and you need that, right? That's going to be part of the overall sales cycle for you, whether that client is going to choose you or not. So if you think about the numbers game, right? There's lots of clientele, and you're constantly meeting people, looking to build your book of business and your sphere of influence. It's a great way. It's a fast way to engage with people, to have, like you said, them to get to know you a bit more, break down some barriers, and people have that instant comfort. You run into them in an elevator, they're going to feel like they know you. They're not going to turn away. They're going to start the conversation up.
100%.
So you're in Winnipeg right now.
Yes.
So how big an event is this that you're at?
Oh, it's over 1,000 realtors from across Canada. It's great. And it's, of course, with COVID, right? It's been a few years since this conference has been held. So It's great to see people get together. And it's magical to watch people interact and bond in the way that they do. And at all conferences, I know that a lot of the Canadian brands have these conferences. And I would assume it's all very similar. People get to know each other. They create great networks. They learn. And they come back feeling inspired. I think that's really important as well. If your organization has something like this, go attend. It's really useful. It makes you come back. You're focused on your business. You're excited. You've got a bigger network than you did before coming. So there's a lot of value, I think, in these events.
And how's the weather in Winnipeg right now?
Surprisingly, not terrible. It's really hot, actually. Really.
That's why they picked mid-September. It's not winter yet. A couple more
You
weeks.
Got it. Exactly.
And I can't help but smile as soon as you mentioned Winnipeg. I'm at a convention. I don't know if you ever watched The Office, but there was a great episode in The Office at one point where they go to a convention in Winnipeg. There's an American company coming up there, and they poke some fun at it and everything. And I thought it was pretty good.
I got to find the clip, David. I'll put it on a meme. People will love it in the chats that are going on right now about the conference.
So are you presenting there? Are you speaking? You have that type of role there?
This one, no. Often, yes, but this one, no. This one is just more about, we've got a bunch of our people from our brokerages across Canada here. And then, of course, there's broker owners within the Royal LePage network that are here, as well as their realtors as well. So it's really just a good opportunity for me, someone who's still on the newer side, to get to know people. Just like our realtors, it's a numbers game for me too, right? You get to know as many people as you can. You try to interact, start on social, aim the end goal to get in front and to actually meet people face to face, and just do that over and over again. And that's sort of how you get to know the network overall.
Very cool. Karen, obviously Royal LePage and Sutton are two national Canadian real estate brands. Do you think it's important for agents to work for a Canadian brand? And does being part of a Canadian brand give agents any advantages in our marketplace?
Absolutely, yes. I've got two thoughts on this topic. So absolutely, a brand, a trusted brand, a known brand, a brand like Sutton, a brand like Royal LePage, This is helpful because what does it instantly build? It builds trust. Consumers know the brand. I always tease. This is where you probably my first role where I don't have to explain what the company does. Everyone knows instantly when they hear about Royal LePage, they know what it does. There's some warm connotation around it. Most real estate brands are liked in Canada. They're trusted brands. So this is a good thing, especially as you're starting out, and even down the road in your career, to have that backing. Now I say backing because I think what we see in the industry and what is unique about the industry is that there's a lot of co-branding that occurs in real estate. And I see branding in real estate as so much of a partnership because it is so important. You're selling a personal service. You are the service as a realtor, that you do have that branding, but that you have the backing of your brokerage, that franchise level brand as well. I think it helps. And I think that combined, it creates something very, very powerful. Trust plus personalized service, personal approach. I know who I'm dealing with. I know this person and their personal brand as well. So people talk about this a lot, right? It's a topic that comes up, I guess, because it's something that shifted over time. I don't think that realtors should ever feel like they're in competition with their brokerage brand. It's not a competition, it's a partnership.
Yeah, and the whole Canadian aspect too. I mean, there's this driving trend, right, that we're seeing of, being Canadian. And, I think this goes back to World War II, right, where, Canadians were just seen going out there and helping people and doing a lot of hard work, and the opinion that Canadians have, not only in North America, but throughout the world. Right. So I think there's this really big trend that, being part of a Canadian company, staying local, staying national here is also very important.
Absolutely. There's a lot of trust and a lot of pride, I think, that is packaged up in Canadian brands. We're very lucky to have those, in this space. Not to say that we don't love our American colleagues as well. We do, but absolutely being Canadian is very special. And you're right, given the world and the state it is today, I think even more so being Canadian is special right now.
Well, that's an important message, I think, to put out there. So I appreciate both of you saying that, because I'm just strong Canadian supporter of everything, and I love being differentiated from our southern neighbors, who've got a bit of a mess going on there right now. I don't think we want to get political about it, but it's different. It's different, and sometimes people assume that we're really similar there, but we're not, and we're not in the way we do business, and pride of business and pride of ownership. We do things differently in this country, and I think those are two good brands that are great examples of that. There's a Canadian way of doing things, and it's different than the American way. There's no question about that.
It resonates with consumers that also feel that they operate and live their lives in this Canadian way as well. So I think it's helpful. People like to look in the mirror when they're dealing with others, right? They want that comfort of something that's recognizable. And I think that being Canadian, it feels more comfortable, feels something they can just relate to better. It's sort of like when you have a call service, right? It's a thing in real estate, right? The who answers the phone, especially in the off hours, and how important it is to have a Canadian voice on the phone, in the sense that if they have a U.S. accent, as an example, people say, "Oh, where are you? You're not answering the phone from here." It's a small thing, but I've heard it so many times. Others have heard it. It's one of those things that Canadians instantly go, "Oh, where are you answering this phone from?" And it doesn't feel as comfortable, I guess, as it would be as answering the phone from PEI or Ottawa or something like that.
There's a trust factor in that, and there's a politeness factor in that. Like, we're going to answer the phone more politely. We're not looking to be mean and aggressive. And there's a trust in it. I think it's an excellent point. Even though I don't know what a Canadian voice sounds like as much anymore, because we're such a country of immigrants.
Yeah.
And that's the reality, and that's one of the positive things about our country. And when you talk to people that have immigrated here, it's no, I don't want to do it the way we did it in the country that I came from. I want to do it the Canadian way. I want to, that's why I'm here in the first place. If I liked what was going on in my old country, I would have stayed there. So I want to do it the Canadian way. Tell me about the Canadian way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the Southern accents in the U.S. that are the tell on those call answering services. You're right. Every other voice, it could be any voice you're getting, but the Southern accent, that tips people off.
Yeah, unless it's a Southern accent American who's now living in Mississauga
Right.
because they immigrated. Right? So,
Exactly, right? Exactly. More and more of that to come, perhaps, right? So,
yeah.
Karen, obviously Royal LePage is very lucky to have you. What are some advice you would give to other women who want to take up more leadership roles in the real estate industry? And, what are some immediate steps they could take to help them do that?
a lot of it is about networking, so to speak, or that broad category of networking. So immediate steps, I would say you want to join as many things as you can. So get involved in organized real estate, always a great one. There's a lot of people that have a wealth of knowledge in organized real estate, and they're helpful. Right? People that are in any sort of thing where it's not everyone, it's a smaller group and you're meeting in a more intimate setting, they're going to help you. So join organized real estate, join as many committees as you have time for, and that resonates with you. Don't just join for the sake of, okay, I need to join that. It has to also inspire you a little bit, because again, it'll be more authentic. There's CREW. So that's for commercial real estate. Women, there's this Toronto chapter, there's Vancouver chapter, there's lots of chapters of that. That's a great organization. And then I heard Kathleen Black say at a seminar one time, I thought it was great, that just create your own stage. I thought it's not the truth, right? If you think about where we are today, you can self-publish a book easily. Like, maybe that's a little bit understatement. It's not easy, but it's doable, right? You can publish a book on Amazon yourself if you wanted to. You can become an expert, and you can have YouTube videos, and you can have podcasts, and you can have blogs, and you can have great social media content without anyone telling you can't, or saying that no, it's going to be somebody else. You control that destiny. So create your own stage as much as you possibly can is always going to be great advice as well. And do things that are authentic to you, right? If you love golf, golf. If you don't love golf, pick something else. You're going to find your tribe, and that's going to help you excel, because you're going to find people that support you, you support them back. And that's how everyone grows in business.
That's great advice. I love it. And I completely agree. And I want to see more women in leadership positions in our industry. It's great to to have you at Royal LePage, and you bring a wealth of knowledge. And I really love the fact that you see the industry outside of the real estate industry. Like, I was extremely young when I got my real estate license. I was 23. So, this is the real estate industry is the whole industry that I know. It's always great to see other entrepreneurs that have been parts of different industry, real estate related. But, you making the comment of how community driven we are, right? Sometimes when you're in this industry, that's all you know, and you don't really see those trends as closely or as as easily as you do. So it's great to have you part of our community. Great to have you part of the leadership in the industry, and great message to other women who want to take up leadership positions as well.
Oh, fantastic. It's such a pleasure being with you guys today and chatting. You could do this all day, right? It's such a fantastic topic. And, people that are in this industry are passionate. And I love that, because if you don't work with passion, then what is the point of all of it? There's no shortage of that in the real estate industry. So it's a great thing to be a part of, a great thing to watch transform and grow. And I'm very excited to be a part of it and to be here.
And Karen, is a treat for us. And I'm really happy for you in your career and the way your career has progressed, but I'm really happy also for our real estate industry, because someone with your background from understanding real estate from a legal point of view, from spending the time in the trenches there, to your position with the title insurance company, and your position in the tech world, and now using all that to help advance a Canadian brand. Where you are right now is great, and it pushes the bar up, and that's what we're talking about on these podcasts. You're one of the people that helps raise the bar in the industry and can do it for all of us. So thanks, Karen, for sharing your thoughts with us today, and congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Such a pleasure being with you both. I feel like I'm in such great company, and I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I look forward to doing it again.
Awesome, Karen. Thanks so much for coming on board.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.